out of Horrible Histories, Bill, Yonderland and Ghost, which is your favourite?
That's like choosing your favourite child, which is easy for me because I only have one.
How has this first year without ghosts been?
Weird for us, I'm sure a bit weird for everyone. It's meant that we can do other things, all the things that we've been promising we're going to do for the last 5 years, because we ended up on about a 14-month rolling schedule, so we were still in post-production on the previous series when we started writing the next one.
Uh-huh.
So it just kind of tied us up a lot. So yeah, I've just done a show, I've written a show with Martha that's on at Christmas with Chris McCausland, who no one had heard of when we started writing it. But he's doing very well. Ben and I are working on the show, and I've been script editing some stuff, done a bit on Brassic, which I really loved. Yeah, hopefully, you know, the gang are sort of have some ideas of things we'll do together. So, but yeah, it's been a funny time.
And you've had a book, 2 books now.
Yeah.
We have a new book out, and it's all about the shenanigans behind the scenes. And in fact, if you come and see us, I've got little postcards with a special offer, all to do with the book. So you can come and see me at the our little desk, and I shall give you a nice postcard, and there's a QR code on it.
Also, casually these guys won a BAFTA last night.
So Matt, Jim, and Simon were there, and we were invited, and they went, do you want to go and have a Shiny Shoes dinner at BAFTA, or do you want to come to the NEC? And we said, NEC for us. So
Absolutely.
This was the BAFTA Special Award for Horrible Histories.
Yes.
That's right.
And we were discussing this backstage. Started in 2009. Think of all the historians that now exist because of you.
It is. We kind of quite quickly we got used when the show started. We sort of got used to kids coming up and saying, "Oh, we watched the show," and then over time we got used to people going, "I'm now at university studying history." We've now entered a phase where people come up and go, "I'm a professor, and I grew up with you." Which
my children are watching the show.
Yeah.
Really? Oh God. In fact, last week I went up and did a little Q&A for some students. One of the students came up afterwards, this young woman who was studying law, I think she said, and she said, the last time I had a photo with you, I was 6. I went, what? Come to see Horrible Histories live at the Albert Hall, which was one of the best days of my life. I'm going to say that now. Yeah. It was a really, really lovely experience, and it was, I think, the first time we realized the show was doing quite well. There was a really big crowd outside, and she reminded me she was just this little, and I sort of vaguely remembered it. And she said, yeah, I was 6, and now I'm going to have another photo with you, and then I'm going to show my mum. I just went, oh God, I feel really old.
And she's here tonight. That was truly a head trip, seeing the proms on a Horrible Histories. Can we talk about that just a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Because what was that like for you, looking back on it now?
Saying to myself that I have to be very, very in the moment when I step out on that stage. I always say to my children now, take a mind photograph, and it makes them stop and look around. So I gave myself that advice. I will never forget stepping out onto the stage of the Albert Hall, and what you do is you look out, you see a sea of faces stretching out in the sort of pit area. Then there's another level, and then there's another level, and then there's another level, and you go, oh my God, I'm at the Albert Hall. And then you think, oh, I've forgotten all my lines. and then you know, the training kicks in.
I had the dubious pleasure of opening it, doing a Bob report, and obviously that's quite a lot to remember, and I was like, I think I'm pretty good with lines, and I'd written it, and so I sort of knew it, but I was so worried that I might go out there. I was like, I haven't played the Albert Hall before, like most people. And I was like, what if I go out there and I get so nervous that I just absolutely freeze? And then when it's fine, what we'll do is we'll put it on auto cue, and we'll have a big screen like midway out in the middle of the audience. So if you get lost or, freeze through fear, just glance up at it and you'll know where you are. And the second I started talking, the first thing someone did is put their kid on their shoulders right in front of the auto cue. But thankfully, my memory, which was about 10 years less old back then.
And also that kid is again now a professor.
Yes.
Yeah, probably
So
a fully grown professor.
Weirdly, still goes around on his dad's shoulders.
If you watch the recording of that show back, which I think you can still do on iPlayer, I think.
Let's say so.
Yeah. You'll notice when we do the Vikings song, Matt, which is very uncharacteristic, he forgot one of the lines, and he said, I think it was the second line of the song.
He says it, yeah. He basically sings the first line and then was
then
waiting
freezes.
for someone else to come in.
And then he sort of looks around confidently and then catches up with himself. And we all looked at him and he's like,
Yeah.
It's like, I'm so sorry.
He sings, it was the summer of 793. We sailed across the rain on the...
What lyrics from those songs get stuck in your head still? Because everyone in this room has got half a lyric from one of these songs stuck in their head for the rest of their lives.
yes.
Almost all of them. I mean, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Without fail, I mean, the number of pub quizzes that's got me through.
Nice.
My son's like 6, so he's just kind of entering this zone. And he'd never seen anything that I'd done because we just sort of slightly insulated him from it because he thinks I'm weird enough as it is. And he just came, they were doing the Battle of Hastings at school. And so they'd obviously played the King and Queen song from Horrible Histories.
Obviously.
And so he came home and was like, "You on telly?" Oh yeah, a bit, sometimes.
Yeah, but in a cool way.
In a really cool way.
So you should really respect me, child. Please.
No, I am deep in a cool zone with my son. Ben's have come out the other side.
You can tell from the use of the phrase cool zone.
Yeah, that's how cool I am. Imagine me being your dad. Oh my God.
But touching on ghosts, because like I said earlier, there is a Pat. Could Pat stand up, please?
Where,
And please, if there are any captains,
have we got
there's
any,
Pat.
oh, look at this.
All right.
All right, mate.
Oh, amazing.
Beautiful
Oh,
people.
that's wonderful.
Oh, here it comes.
Oh,
Hey!
yes. There you go. Oh, fantastic. Give us a wave.
Now,
That's amazing.
I should have said this earlier. Of course, you guys are going to get your own chances to ask your questions. And I think we must have first passes for the Pats. Okay? If you've come in costume, definitely get to have first go.
Absolutely.
Please, of course. When do you think you realised that Ghosts Mania may have got a bit out of hand?
I think when the people started turning up at like the gates at set on the second series. It was
cars because the road is quite busy outside of the front of the house.
Yeah, a couple died, didn't they?
Sometimes we're filming right up against them. You know, all the cars beeping. Some of them because they can see a camera crew and go, mate. Others like waving, and then the next day, some school children turned up, and then some parents turned up. Dogs. We saw you filming, and that was, And I just thought maybe we're onto something here.
For me, it would have been when, and you've told the story before, and I can't get rid of it in my mind, when your head was on one person's leg as a tattoo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And your body was on the other leg.
Not to the same scale, which I did appreciate. They had sort of filled the calf area.
Okay.
And really good tattoos, thankfully, because that could have gone either way. I mean, I say a good tattoo, a very good rendition of my face, so it depends how you feel about my face, which I'm, indifferent about. Thanks, Ben. Is that your
I'm just saying,
your very handsome sound?
I'm just saying you're a very handsome man.
Particularly as Robin.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, obviously.
That's the weird thing. I've had more people than I ever thought I would recognize me as Robin and not realize I played Humphrey, which I never got. But also, if there is anyone who's like, I've got a bit of a thing about one of your characters, it's always the caveman. And that's weird. Because, I mean, that is one odd-looking dude.
Could you talk a little bit about the behind-the-scenes stuff? Because of your second book, you would make up parlor games to pass the time. And there's one where it would just be an either-or thing.
Yeah.
They'd go commas or full stops. And the other one was birthdays or chicken. Could you talk a bit about losing your minds?
Okay, so I'll tell you who the ringleader is, and you'll be unsurprised to know that it's Mr. James Howick. And he sits in the green room sort of looking around, and then he will just start. He will just start a game.
Yeah.
And you're like, Jim, I'm trying to do a bit of work here, but no. The green room turned into a sort of a games arena.
I like the disparate approaches. Some were things where they kind of sat in the same genre, windows or doors, and others it would be like pizzas or chairs.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
It's a good game.
It's a good game.
I mean, you're laughing now, but you're on the way home, you will be thinking about it.
Yeah.
It will start a nice argument.
Oh, there were lots. Where's the P was good, where you've hidden the P somewhere in the world, and you have to yes/no answer until you find the P. We always found the P, I think.
What you have to know, the context of this is, people always quite excited to come to film sets. When you've had a day on a film set, you go, oh my God, nothing happens. It feels like time itself is standing still. They're quite boring places because actually, other than the little moment of action, after you've said some lines, probably in my case not got to the end of the little section you're doing, everything breaks down and they have to fix lights and fix camera positions and all that. So there's a lot of sitting around.
You see,
that's why
I have a completely different experience because for me, when they go, right, cut, you've got 15 minutes, I can pull out the nose plugs and teeth and it's so nice. It's like I have 1,000 little holidays a day.
This is a big question, but of all of your projects across your careers, what would you say have been the most ludicrous moments where you actually look back on it and go, how did we end up here? Because there was a moment watching one of the blooper reels, I should say, where you're all corpsing as essentially you're watching a human being put tissues up a dog. You got paid to do that.
Yeah.
You wrote that.
Yeah.
That's your fault.
I know, in those moments, you have to step back and go, what are we doing? For me, I think it was being dressed as a Spartan warrior and talking very seriously about mortgages. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether to get interest only or whether the rates are going to come down. Dressed in a sort of thong.
Kneeling on a wheelie chair,
Yes.
playing a 7'5" prison boss with you and Matt as my breasts.
Oh, yes, there was that moment, yeah.
Yeah, I remember and it was so difficult because you kept splitting the latex because you were moving your heads. I remember Matt going, no, well, I think our noses are the nipples. And just this really weird, like, how high up should they be? And it was so difficult to get the shot. And then we all had that, what are we doing moment.
I think in that moment, I remember thinking to myself, some of my friends work in the government.
Ladies and gentlemen, last night they won a BAFTA. Also, can we keep that round of applause going for our signers who just had to sign that? Wonderful people. I wish I could have seen the toga, all of that. Excellent work. Are you willing, by the way, the pair of you, to admit that Ghosts was just a really, really long game to meet Kylie?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was quite a long game because, we've been approached to do a comic relief thing on like series 2. And then they were like, and the great thing about Comic Relief is you can get anyone, and we all went Kylie. And then she agreed because thankfully she really liked the show, which was lucky because we'd name checked her in it in the previous series. And then we tried to do it 1 year, and she got COVID.
I think,
and
that's right. Yeah, but we'd asked. So when you play music in television, particularly the BBC, you have to ask permission from the rights, permission to play the song. And there are a number of songs we wanted to use, and I'm always fed up with it because you think, oh, that'd be so cool to use that. Anyway, it was series 1, we used the Kylie track. Yeah. And Kylie's people came back immediately and went, yep, that's not a problem. And then someone heard her on, I think it was Radio 2, she was being interviewed, and she said, oh, have you seen this show Ghosts? It's great. And they used one of my tracks. I think at that moment we went, right, let's get Kylie. But it was a very long game.
And you decided to let her have the same site as Alison, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is sucking up to the nth degree.
Yeah, guilty. Yes.
Yeah.
We were so nice to her, and we were really worried. When you go, it's so cool that Kylie's coming in. What if she's awful? She was so ridiculously lovely. And they'd set up this big, swanky green room for her in the other wing of the house.
They're in this massive room on her own, and she just kept coming to our green room going, so, tell me about, and we're like...
Chicken or commas?
Chicken or commas, Kylie.
Kylie went with commas, quite right.
Classic Kylie.
And she gave us all a bottle of Kylie wine. So
Did give us some Kylie wine, and it's very nice.
I'm going to ask you to do some name dropping if you don't mind, because as well as Kylie, there are some other famous folk that love your work. Who else, I'm sorry for the blushes, has stepped up to you and said, by the way, I really love?
My greatest moment of my life was the tweet I got from Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill.
I remember Jim rushing into the green room going, have you seen it? Me and Jim share a passion for Star Wars.
Have you seen it, mate?
And it took about 2 days for me to work out how to reply because I was so starstruck by a tweet. Yeah. And on my birthday last year, my partner got the tweet framed and it sits on my desk.
That is so sweet.
So you see, you are in very good company here, NEC.
Good people. And the drummer from Wolf Alice rocked up as well.
Yeah.
I got chatting to Wolf Alice on Twitter, as you do. Yeah, he was a massive fan, came down.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell anyone. The crew, some of the really young crew came up and went, oh my God, do you know Wolf Alice? I went, yes, I do.
I know those words.
I know all the wolves.
What was lovely is he came with his mum.
He did, he came with his mum.
Of course he did. You guys have talked about what you took home, and I gather it was the medal ribbon.
Yes.
And also, of course,
the swagger stick, yeah.
Which has
Eva's
been
stick.
Put in a Perspex box now?
Well, no, that's the plan. It's still in its, for the deep fan base, you'll know that the art department made me a massive Pepperami housing for it, which I was delighted with. But my plan was always to put it in a little, in its own little wooden box with a glass front on, which I still plan to do.
I have said, I will build you that box.
I know, and he will.
But you have to confirm the length of the stick.
I do. I shall go and measure it when I get home.
And Laurence, it was your own head, is that right?
Yeah. That's a weird sort of arrogance, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it was finally, on Series 1, I was like, I think this is all going to be a lot easier if we just have a prop head. And they were like, they cost like $6,000, no. And then on Series 5, there was so many head gags, we finally got a really good likeness. Because the prop head we used in Series 1 to 4 was a cast of another actor. So we could never really show it. And so we got a really good one on Series 5 that lives in my study on a shelf next to Mojo from Yonderland. So there's an interesting pairing.
I like that, gang. That's a good friendship.
Yeah.
Now, you folks are going to get your own chance to ask your questions shortly. But just before we get there, this is a big, vast question, but what aspects or moments from your shows, from your work, have taken off in a way you didn't expect? Because I imagine there are a few jokes you went, okay, this is going to play, this is going to work. What didn't you expect to do so well that really popped off?
The word mooner used almost, certainly to my face, more than the word moon, even in my house. And I was in a lift at the hotel when I arrived on Thursday night, and a quite elderly lady got in the lift, and we went all the way down, and then as she got out on the ground floor, she turned to me and went, Duka, Duka? So yes, the sound of caveman chess, which is also the name of my new album.
Do you know what? I just suddenly realised for me it was the way I pronounced Debbie in Yonderland. I did it just as I just went, Debbe, as a kind of ad-lib, if you like. And then I thought I would stick at doing that because it might annoy some of the others.
Yeah. It did. I remember petitioning to cut it from the first episode because I was like, it's silly, I don't get it. And how wrong I was. Yesterday, someone asked for a debate and asked you to tell them to carry on.
That's true. Yes, yeah, very true.
It's silly, I don't get it.
It is amazing how much we say that, given what we do, where we draw the line. It's a mystery even to me.
You go, no, that's way too far. That's way too far. Okay, guys, who wants to be the first up? Perhaps one of our Pats. Yeah, well, we got a hand up, I think. All right, how are we doing this, folks? Do we have a microphone?
I think there's one set up in the
wow,
there's the microphone.
Right here we have. It's right. We have it with a lovely orange cloak. We have no spotlight for you. If you could just say your name and then ask your question, that'd be wonderful.
Hi, my name is Lily. Massive fan of Horrible Histories, my childhood right there. My question is to you both. What was your favourite song to perform in Horrible Histories?
I was asked this the other day, and I still think it was, for me, the Vikings song. Because I'm not a very confident singer. It was my turn to do a solo song. I was really nervous. And even, Richie and his gang who were recording it, they sort of said, do you think you could sing it Yeah, it's all right. And I just couldn't really hold a tune very well. But I loved pretending to play the guitar in the Vikings song. I loved it. Felt like I was in a real rock band.
Yeah. My favourite was the recording. I'd written the Pachacuti song, recording it, and then getting to set, and they're going, yeah, that hasn't worked, Matt's going to do it. And then they made him, and he had to mime to my vocal. I can't work out who it was more humiliating for.
So dark, that song, by the way, so dark.
Oh, but I was so pleased. I wrote the lyrics and sent them in, and I was like, they're going to change all of that. And they let it all go through. My son listens to it now, and he's like, what? They skinned them and turned them into drums. And I was like, that's history, you know.
Classic Pachacuti.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I'm Max. One of my questions is, throughout the entire series of Ghosts, whose is your favorite line that isn't your own?
Oh,
Great question.
gosh.
Matt's answer the question, damn your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Because every time he did it, Tom, the director, went bigger, bigger. And then when he got really big, he accidentally went Scottish. And then they used that take, and then later on, we just made him Scottish.
Yeah.
All from the one line.
Oh, God. Sometimes I wake up and all I can hear is Jim going, dip it. Dip it again. And now my boys have started doing it when I've got tea.
No.
Dip it.
I think now it might be spaghetti napoletana.
Oh, yeah. Some things that happened in the writing room, Dip It was one of them. Or we just thought, oh, no. When we get to film that, it's going to be really hard. And you could see Jim, like, really scooching down, making himself comfortable, because he knew it was going to be hard for the rest of us. And then did an extra sort of, Dip It, just to make us laugh. And it will always make me laugh.
When you wrote Up My Bottom, presumably, like that's, yep,
Yeah.
that's going to be hell.
I mean, look, there were certain sequences that were very, very hard to perform, and when you're on the other side as well, really difficult.
Up your bottom was definitely hard from the other side.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
moving on.
Thank you so much.
I'm
Hi.
Casey.
Hi.
This is a question on behalf of my friend who can't be here tonight. We recently rewatched Ghosts, and we got to the episode where they were sort of sat round in therapy and talking about dreams.
Yeah.
And Mary describes her nightmare of carrots turning into babies, and then there's a man on fire.
Yep.
Who the bally hell wrote that?
I think that was a Matt and Jim, wasn't it, that one?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. Because I remember at the end then when it happens, so we had about 3 attempts at shooting that to get something as horrible as Mary's description.
That's right.
I seem to recall.
I do remember writing room really having fun discussing how we get to a point with us all sort of in a therapy circle, which is quite a nice thing to do. Having some real fun with Mary's nightmare. It's awful.
And Julian's nightmare.
Thank you so much.
By the way, thank you for the most beautiful MCM question. That only could have been asked
Yeah,
here
that's
in
true,
this room.
actually, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Hi, my name's Livy.
Hi.
Have you thought about doing books for your other projects, like one for Yonderland and one for Bill?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, we talked about doing a Bill one. I mean, the trickiness is is market out there for these things? In this room, probably it would be fun to revisit.
It would,
those.
it would,
You never
yeah.
know.
Yeah, quite hard to convince a publisher, I think, to take on projects that are sort of.
I would love to write a book about the making of Bill, just to go from the viewpoint of this was us making our first film, and how every day was like a complete education.
Yeah, it was astonishing.
We knew nothing.
By the way, I've got to ask, sorry to interrupt, but what's the nerdiest Easter egg that you snuck into that first book?
Oh, I don't know. There were quite a few. I mean, we had a long running. There was a line that was cut from the first ever episode where Robin and Julian are jostling to get into the same spot, and Julian steps back and lets Robin through and goes, "Age before beauty." And Robin goes, "I'm 23." And we never found another spot for it. So it was nice in the book to put in Robin brackets age 23.
He looks great for 23.
Right? And that he would have been the oldest in the village,
Yeah.
I'm
Hey.
Corey.
Hi.
Hi. I was wondering, do either of you have a favourite song of yours that you can resonate with the characters that you play in Ghosts?
Oh, okay.
Wow, that's a really good question.
I've always quite liked Bad Moon Rising.
Yes.
One, because it's in American Werewolf in London. It's a great
Yes.
film. But also that feels like it's a good fit.
That's a good. Jim made a playlist. Didn't
Jim made a playlist of, when we were in the green room. Another one of Jim's filling time in the green room. He made a playlist for all the
he? Made a
characters.
Spotify playlist, and it's great. What would you say for me? Because mine.
Well, I always liked the Coldstream Guards that you got to do.
Oh, that's true.
Acapella.
Yes. So I started to do a bit of research on, and it's absolutely destroyed my Spotify algorithm. But it was like the Band of the Royal Marines plays, and there are so many of those albums, and they're all very similar. Lots of snare drum.
My name's Ace. My question is, if you were in the Ghost universe
Yes.
and you had inherited Button House and you woke up and you could see the ghosts, how do you think you would react? Because obviously Alison was very much pretending they're not there, finding another house. Do you think you'd react the same, or would you be a bit more akin to them?
I think I'd be delighted at first and then really annoyed. Like, please, I'm just trying to watch Match of the Day.
I would be terrified and I would leave, which would be very annoying for the writers of that show. I remember trying to work out, we kind of had to do Alison's journey to acceptance across 2 episodes rather than just in the pilot, because it's just so hard to believably get someone to find that they were in a house with all of these ghosts and stay there. That was a bit of a tricky journey, but yeah, I think I'd be out of there.
I must say, it's fascinating seeing how the American version has tackled it. But now we're seeing a German version, an Australian version,
and French and Greek. Greek, I believe.
They've got too much history, Greece. That's
well. This is what's great is that all these countries sort of take the format and go, and then we can find a way of rehearsing our history, even the difficult bits, and in some ways, especially the difficult bits. In the sort of with a tone that has some levity to it, and I'm fascinated to see how they all how they turn out.
I think France has a collaborator. Funny stuff.
Yeah.
I'm Bethany. First
Hi.
of all, I do actually have Kylie Minogue glasses.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
My question is, out of Horrible Histories, Bill, Yonderland, and Ghosts, which is your favourite?
Oh,
Ooh.
that's like choosing your favourite child. Which is easy for me because I only have one. Genuinely, they were all so brilliant in their own ways. Horrible Histories, we had, I was sort of had a writer's hat and an actor's. We weren't producing it. It was somebody else's, was taking on the stress, and we just turned up. Yonderland, I was show running, and it was an absolute nightmare. It was really impossible to do, but it was so much fun because we got away with so many insane things. Bill was like a holiday with your friends. We were all just pre-children and we went away to Yorkshire for 2 months. I mean, it was nuts. And then, Ghosts, the response to that. So sort of, there are ups and downs to all of them, but I kind of, in different ways, love them all equally.
Yeah, that's true. I probably would favour Ghosts if you really push me. It's just like a fantastic, wonderful period of my life.
Thank you. Could you do the Captain and Robin voices?
Well, of course I can. What on earth are you doing standing up there?
What are you talking into? Weird, dangerous technology.
Well, carry on.
In our house, cocktails are now cocktail.
Very good.
I'm so proud of us for waiting this long to ask them to do the voices. So proud.
Hi, my name's Grace. I'm a massive fan. I take A-level history and drama because of you guys.
Aww.
Excellent.
As you guys are both comedians, what's your best dad joke?
You go first.
I can't. I know
just
this
remembering it.
because my son's been telling me an awful lot of knock jokes.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, "Tell me a joke." And like most comedians, if you ask them to tell you a joke, they'll go. So I told him the only joke I remember, but it takes 15 minutes and it is not worth it. Which was also his review of it. I'll tell you the punchline, and then you can do research and find out the joke if you care, having already ruined it. The punchline is, the old guy in the crowd outside the Vatican says, "Who's that in the ridiculous hat standing next to Bill?" So good luck Googling.
So, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting
Moo.
cow.
So, the other one is not a joke, but I love doing this with my kids. Every morning, I make them a smoothie just so I can get all the good stuff into them before they go to school. And just before I turn on the little smoothie machine, I go, oh, God, I totally forgot to tell you. If you're in a cage, if you're cage diving and there's a great white shark, what you must do is, and then turn the smoothie on, and then pretend that I'm giving them the information, then turn it off and go, and that's how you survive a great white shark attack. And every time they look at me and go, don't do it! Oh, God, you're so annoying!
I've just remembered I'd made up a sum for my joke the other morning and rushed into my son and woke him up for school. And I went, what do you give a budgerigar with a headache? And he goes, I don't know. And I went, paracetamol.
Yes.
It's all right, isn't it?
It's all right.
Hey!
Thank you.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Neve.
Hello.
I don't want to make you feel old, but I have grown up with like horrible histories.
Oh, we are old.
We're old now. Yeah.
My question is, you've sort of inspired me to get into drama and stuff. Was there anyone or anything in particular that inspired you to get into writing or acting or that sort of thing?
I grew up watching all the comedies that Fawlty Towers and Blackadder and things like that. And I was always religiously going, right, who writes these? And then, of course, realised I was kind of obsessed with them. Mm-hmm. Not met John Cleese, but I did meet Ben Elton. So I was like, and I was in an audition. He was auditioning me. And I was like, and then I had to sort of stop myself kind of being a real massive fan around him because it would have ruined the audition. I didn't get the job anyway. So.
My dad videoed all of a rerun of Fawlty Towers that was on in the early 80s before anyone was born. And at the time you had to set a video recorder using the clock. So if the schedules changed, you just didn't get a bit of the show. And there's an episode called Communication Problems with a woman who's deaf. And the video cut off the last minute and a half. And you couldn't get it on home video at the time. And obviously there was no Netflix or anything. So I watched that videotape so much that eventually it wore out and snapped. And for about 5 years of my life, I didn't know how that episode ended until eventually they released a script book. And it was that script book, reading that, I was just like, this is great, I want to write these. So I think a lot of Fawlty Towers, and then the thing that sort of cemented it for me was, I think watching like Father Ted when I was 20, and I was like, I'm going to go to uni and do funny writing or something.
Yeah.
Taking funny writing, MA.
Yeah.
Love that idea.
My name's Pete. So my question is pretty simple. What is your favourite stupid death?
The Laurence Rickard, his parachute off of the Eiffel Tower, that my friend George, I think, played him in the show. But I love that he calculated his own weight, but not the weight of the parachute. If you have a particularly bleak disposition, there is a video of it on YouTube. It's quite quick.
My favourite performance is Matt doing the poor soul who got off the train and fell off in the blackout during the Blitz. And the way he pronounced blackout, I now say that regularly. Oh no, we've had a blackout. Yes, that was my favourite.
Hi, my name's Alex. I've
Hi.
been watching horrible history since I was in primary school and I'm in college now. So sorry to make you feel old.
That's okay. That's okay, young lady. Oh, yes.
I've got two questions. One is for Ben specifically,
Hello.
and the other is for both of you.
All right.
So I'm an air cadet, and a lot of what we do is like banter within the other like cadet versions. So we take the mickey out of the army. Do you think the captain would like take the piss out of the Navy or
Yeah,
the
of course.
RAF?
Of course, because the captain is, tiny part of the captain is based on my dad. He would always say, he was in the RAF, and he would always go, God, fellow in the Royal Green Jackets, absolute typical army, awful. He'd go on for ages, and he would just lay into all the other stuff. There's fierce inter-service rivalry, famously. Yes, and that civilians in uniform is a line that my dad used.
I was also in the Air Cadets. I always remember the guy who was CO going around, and if your boots weren't shiny enough, he went, shine those up, you look like you're in the army.
Yeah, my commanding officer does that as well.
Yeah.
So the other question for both of you. So obviously a lot of your characters have very different voices. What was your favourite voice to do for any of your characters, and can we have a quote from them?
I really enjoy. In Yonderland, there was a character who had an unhealthy obsession with machinery. He had a machine that polished diamonds, and clearly he wasn't just using it for that. But I remember he was kind of like that, and he was just like a very, very camp German guy. And he walked in a way that it looked like he had 2 dislocated hips. I can't remember. No one stopped me. And I had a really fun day.
Well, I was actually gonna pick someone from Horrible Histories, Paul Baumer, who was also the German World War I trench guy. He was just a little bit obtuse like that towards Sarah Hadland's character. Why are you talking like that? I loved doing him. But most of all, I love the captain. He's part of me now. Find myself saying, turning into the captain when I'm annoyed with people making a noise. Right, stop that. Come along.
I am told to carry on a lot.
I think this may be our last question.
But fear not, because we're here all day, and you can come and ask us the question at the desk.
So no pressure. Good luck.
Where did the hot sausage bit come from?
That came from I don't know. Again, nobody stopped me. And we were doing a sketch about the Visigoths, and it just came out. That's something that he would say. And then I decided I was going to try and put it in as many sketches as I possibly could.
Looking back at the first 2 series of Ghosts, is there anything that you wish you could go back and alter slightly, or was it kind of all very planned from the start?
I think because we were very, very lucky, very, very insistent that we got to do a pilot, because there were so many things we knew we didn't know. And so I think a lot of the things that would have tripped us up, we got to do off camera. And yeah, there's some shots from the pilot in the book. But so I think it was series 1 of Horrible Histories. We did a lot of things which we then learned not to do in the series that went forward. Yonderland, we would have started with series 3 Elf originally if we could.
Yes.
But with Ghosts, I think more than anything, we kind of got our chance to refine it before we started.
Yeah, we were very lucky.
Yeah.
And that's thanks to the BBC and the unique way it's funded by all of us.
Thank you so much. This has been a great panel.
Oh, thank you.
Guys, I'm so sorry to do this to you, particularly as you're dressed in such gorgeous clothes.
You look wonderful.
Look at everybody. A round of applause, even though they don't have any questions,
that's
please.
just fabulous.
And keep that round of applause going as we thank them. Laurence, Ben, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.